Now that we've gone over the basic idea of how to notate your basic 1-octave scales, let's go ahead and recap over how to write those key signatures out. These are all the possible sharps that you could have in your treble and bass clef, starting with F all the way through B, in the order we have stated before. And what you would do is if you have fewer sharps, you would just write that amount, starting with the F on the left, and just using that amount of sharps. For example, the key of E, as we wrote earlier, would only have the first 4 sharps. But these are all the possible ones. These are all the possible flats that you could have on your treble and bass clef, and this works very similarly to that of the sharps, but as we've stated before, in the reverse order. On the left we have our B flat, and the last one on the right is F flat. Earlier, if you recall, we notated out the A flat major scale, and it used the configuration of the first 4 flats, B, E, A, and D. And so that is very similar to notating that of the E major scale, but we're doing the flat configuration instead of the sharp configuration. So our flats go in the reverse order, as we've stated also. Now you may have noticed that F and C both have a notated flat on the key signature, but you may have also noticed F and C don't have flats, or you may recall me stating this, because there is not an actual flat there. But since this is the proper notation for it, being in those keys, you would just move down the half step, as we stated what a flat means. So 1/2 step down from F would be E, so F flat, you would just play E, and then a 1/2 step down from C would be B, and so you'd play B for C flat. Right now we're going to take a look at the structure of the scale from a bit of a different perspective. We're going to look at it from a whole step, half step basis. If you remember what a whole step is, it is 2 half steps, and if you remember what a half step is, it is the distance between a note and the note right next to it. So on the screen we have all of our 12 tones, and then at the end I have put another A, so we will be going from A to A, from top to bottom. So let's go ahead and put arrows next to the notes in the A major scale. Alright, these are all the notes in the A major scale, and let's go ahead and assign these numbers starting from the lower A to the higher A in the scale order. Now if you notice, there's a bit of a pattern here, and it goes from 1 to 2 there is a whole step, from 2 to 3 is a whole step, 3 to 4 half step, 4 to 5 whole step, 5 to 6 whole step, 6 to 7 whole step, and 7 to 8 half step. And this pattern is actually the same for every type of scale as far as major scales are concerned. So your A major scale is very similar to that of the C major scale. So if we look at the C major scale, this is the order of the 12 tones with a C at the beginning and a C at the end. And you can see that both of the scales actually have the arrows pointing to the correct notes in their order in the scale. So this is the pattern of the major scale. This may come off as kind of a weird concept to be discussing, but this is what we would call an intervallic study. It's because we're talking about the intervals between the notes in the scales. Now, what we just discussed is good for all major scales. So the same pattern of whole steps and half steps applies if you start on any one note and follow that same pattern of skipping notes. So now let's talk about a little bit of a different type of scale, the minor scale. Let's take a look back at that A major scale structure. You see we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and those are the notes in the scale in numerical order from lowest to highest. So in order to turn this into a minor scale, what we're going to do is we're going to take the 3rd and the 6th and we're going to make them flat. And all that means is we're going to move them down a half step, and that will make it into the what we call harmonic minor. What I've done now is put on the screen the A major scale on the left and the A minor scale on the right. And all you can see is that over on the right, the 3rd and the 6th have moved down a note in the scale by a half step each. Now if you remember on the circle of fifths, the A minor scale is listed in the same position as the C major scale, so they have the same key signature. And also if you remember, the C major scale has no sharps or flats. And so the relationship between the major and the minor, the relative minor, is the sharp 7th. And you'll notice that compared to the C major scale, the only difference is that the G is sharp. Now let's go ahead and look at this in the configuration of writing out the scale. So on the screen, what I've done is I went ahead and hand wrote out the A minor harmonic scale. Started on A and ended on A as we've gone over. And since A minor is relative to C major, there is no key signature. So all we have to do to make it the harmonic minor is to make the 7th sharp. So the 7th note in the scale I've put a sharp sign in front of. And that is all you do. Now let's go ahead and take a look at a little more complex of an example. This is the C minor scale. If you look at your circle of fifths, it is relative to the E flat major scale, and the appropriate key signature here is 3 flats, B, E, and A. Now, we went ahead and wrote out C through the other C, and as you'll notice here, I've written a symbol we haven't spoken about, and this is called a natural. What a natural means is for any accidentals, flat or sharp, that have been stated before, you cancel that out and it is just the regular note that's on there. So any note with the natural in front of it means just that note. No flat, no sharp. So here, since the C minor scale requires you to sharp the 7th note, the 7th note happens to be one of the notes that's in the key signature as flat. So instead of putting a sharp in front of it, we go ahead and put the natural, which just means play B. Now that I've mentioned what a natural is, let me go ahead and say a few things that we haven't gone over yet. When you have an accidental, a sharp or a flat, outside of your key signature, just one that's in the middle of your music, what that means is that note and every note that's the same as that one thereafter in the measure, the same measure, so between bars, is going to be sharp or flat. So let's say you have a B and you hit it 3 times in a measure. Put a sharp in front of the first one, and then the other ones will also be sharp. Same thing goes with a natural. When you see something that says natural, those notes thereafter in the measure are natural. And if there's something in the key signature that says a note is sharp, let's say there's a C sharp in the key signature. If you have a C and you want it to be natural, you can put a natural in front of it. But if you want it to go back to being sharp in the same measure, you would put another accidental being sharp. I'll show you an example of this now. This is an illustration of what I just spoke about. We are in the key of A here. As you see, there are 3 sharps. And I went ahead and put a bunch of C notes. So the first 4 of them in the first measure will be C sharp, because the key signature says all C's need to be sharp. In the second measure, all 4 of those will be C natural, because the first one is marked natural. Therefore, there's no designation that they go back to being sharp in the measure. But in the third measure, the first one is natural, then it is remarked as sharp for the second note, then back to natural for the third note, and then sharp again for the final note. Alright, well, I'm going to go ahead and end the lesson right here. I really want to thank all of you for toughing it through these sets of videos. I really try to cram as much information as I can into them, but unfortunately these are things that you don't instantly understand. So if you need to try to understand it a little better, maybe watch the video a few more times, or go back and review some of the older videos. But I hope you can write out your scales now in your key signatures and understand the concept of the circle of fifths and use it as your own reference. Maybe try to write it out so you can remember it for future reference without having to look at it. But we're going to discuss more intricate concepts later on in my next few videos. Feel free to contact me with any questions, and thanks you all for watching.